Good morning, everyone. It's 9:01 a.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Karen, would you want to call the roll?
Ms. Conley?
Present.
Ms. Crapo?
Present.
Mr. Patterson?
Present.
Mayor Bennett?
Here.
Mr. Marvel?
Here.
Mr. Schweitzer?
Here.
Mr. Witt, excuse me.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. All members are present. Are there any additions or revisions to today's agenda? Hearing none, has everyone had the opportunity to review the September 15th minutes of that meeting that Karen always sends out very promptly after our meeting?
I make a motion we approve the September minutes as.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the minutes of the September 15th, 2021 meeting. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So moved. Number 5 on our agenda today is the old business, 5.1, an update on the construction progress with Garmong Construction Services. And Brian, are you back there? Yeah, there you are. Morning.
You got to me quick. Usually I got a little more time to get my stuff together, but good morning. Good to see everybody. Happy to be here and update you on progress over the last month on the convention center, which I think you'll find has been a tremendous amount of progress. First, we'll start with the budget. So current GMP amount is $27,075,034. That reflects a change of $78,175 via change order 13, which in large part was the addition of cameras throughout the parking garage. Schedule, really happy with the schedule of the project. Remains on schedule, and we are going to meet the accelerated completion date of March 1st. Without problem in my mind. So talk a little bit about recent progress. The convention center, nearing the completion of drywall finishing, maybe just a day or two left of that. The painting is complete in the ballroom, and if you walk in the front door, that main hallway now is painted, and we're working on painting the remaining areas on the east side of the building. The ceramic floor tile and wall tile in the main restrooms is complete on the first floor. That crew has moved up to the second floor now. The walk-in cooler and freezer in the kitchen area is completed. Ceiling grid installation throughout the building is about halfway done. The roof coping, so it kind of lines the top of the roof edge. All that work has been completed this month. Metal panel installation. I think they had 1 or 2 panels that they needed to get remade, and we're hopeful to have those out maybe yet this week, if not next week. That'll complete that work. Wood paneling, I've got some pictures of this, so a tremendous amount of wood paneling throughout the interior of the facility, mostly in the pre-function hallway, the ballroom, and the main corridor, and that work is probably 50% complete. It is moving along at a brisk pace. FRP in the kitchen. So FRP is fiberglass reinforced plastic. It's a material that goes on the walls, a protective type material. It has begun to be, installation is underway in the kitchen. And then probably the thing I'm most excited about this month has been the hardscape. So sidewalks, curbs, pavers, really all along Wabash Avenue, down between Copper Bar and the convention center, around the parking garage, and today it looks like they're finishing up next to the parking garage on 9th Street, and we'll start heading down Cherry Street probably yet this week. So just a lot of work got done here in the last 4 weeks on the hardscape, which needed to, because our goal is to start putting asphalt down no later than mid-November, and we're on track to make that happen. The parking garage, if you've driven by at night, you see a lot of light fixtures burning, both inside the parking garage and the building. So a lot of lights have been installed. Elevator installation in the garage is about 70% complete. They got a couple more weeks there. And then the southwest curtain wall has been completed. Upcoming activities in the convention center, we will complete painting and ceiling grid over the next 4 weeks. Continue on with light fixture installation. We'll complete the ceramic tile on the second floor restrooms. We'll complete the wood paneling. We'll begin installing plumbing fixtures in the restrooms. The HVAC system, the heating and cooling, will be fully functional here within the next 4 weeks. The first week of November, we're going to begin terrazzo flooring in the main hallway. Pretty interesting process. If you get a chance, you should take a look at that. Interior glass and glazing. So the fronts of a lot of the conference rooms are glass. That work will begin in November. I mentioned the site work. We're planning on wrapping that up mid-November. We're also hoping to get the connector weather tight. So get the roof on it, get windows in, and get that connector sealed up and protected from the weather. I'd mentioned last month, our goal is to have the connector complete by the end of the year. And we're on track to make that happen. And then the parking garage, excuse me, we're still tracking to have it complete, and I would probably put a little asterisk next to that, by Thanksgiving. I don't know the status of parking garage equipment. I heard maybe it didn't get ordered, or maybe there might be a delay in that coming. I'm not sure. I'm sure Todd will update you on that. But there's a few little bits and pieces that I don't know, that are somewhat outside of our control, that I don't know for sure yet. Data, communication for some of that equipment, I think that's still being worked out as far as who that provider will be. So, but as far as our work is concerned, we will be done by Thanksgiving. So picture time. So this is a shot from the webcam this month. You can see the sidewalk and pavers complete along Wabash. A little closer view of that. Larry Bird Museum here. Right at the front door, you see some pieces of steel sticking out. That forms the support for the canopy, and that it gets a glass canopy. That's here in town, and hopefully will be installed here in the coming days. This is a shot showing you the sidewalk and the concrete paving between the convention center and the Copper Bar. Went by this morning, I saw fence crew out there installing the fence patio outdoor seating area near the Copper Bar, so that's taking shape today. Another shot looking at the rear entrance, north elevation of the convention center. See the ballroom here. It's a little difficult to see, but up in the ceiling you can see the grid going in, you can see lights in, you can see diffusers in the ceiling. And then along the wall, the upper portion, that's wood paneling. There's a better picture of it. That's going on throughout the facility. This is the main hallway. So you can see we've got paint on the walls there. That's just happened here recently. The stair, the stringers have been painted, and just a lot of work taking place there. If you look on the ceiling between the four skylights there in the middle, that's still stud work. That gets wood paneling, so like a wood ceiling that kind of separates that area, which will be a neat feature. This is the walk-in cooler and freezer in the kitchen. This is the FRP wall protection I mentioned, also in the kitchen. Just the shot of the front door. This is the connector. You can see framing is in place, sheathing, and we're actually taking the existing windows from the Hilton Garden Inn, and they move out and we reuse those in the connector, and then frame out those openings, and it becomes open air to the dining area. This is the restroom. See the floor tile and the wall tile installed. Plumbing fixtures will be going in soon. It's the paver area along Wabash. Looks really good. Seating area between the museum and the Copper Bar. These are the two elevators in the parking garage. This is the area, if you walked right out the back door of the facility, headed towards the Holman Center, this is kind of that pedestrian area next to the parking garage. So to the right of the photo are planters. There's some limestone work, and there'll be plantings inside of that. And then to the left, those are limestone benches. And then there's hardscape that fills in the area between those. This is kind of looking at the alley behind the Copper Bar between the parking garage. Hard to see, but trying to show the curb work that's taking place there. You see a block wall there, that's a dumpster enclosure. They laid the brick up on that yesterday. So a lot of work taking place there, but real happy with progress and really see no signs of it slowing down over the next 4 weeks. With that, I'd be happy to entertain any questions you have.
Back to the garage, on the west side of the garage for the new board members. The whole project was changed because the state office building originally was to be a courtyard by Marriott. And so that landscape in there has changed when the developer decided he wanted to wait to develop another hotel after the pandemic was over. That area right in there has been changed to basically, well, as Brian said, a seating area, a nice area if you want to picnic at the garage. But all in all, with even the change in the scope of the design and all that, when the hotel went away, actually now it's across the street at state or at the school corporation, but for the whole project to be that part of it to be redeveloped, Nations Group and CSO and Garmong, of course, have done a tremendous job there in getting that all done and ahead of time. The museum is not going to be ready to open when the convention center is. The majority of articles in the Larry Bird Museum is coming from Greg Gibson. Greg has had his hands full with other things, and that's what has slowed that down. So I just want to tell everybody that it will not be ready by the time the convention center opens. It's out of our hands, and I'm not blaming Greg at all. But like I said, he's had a lot of other things on his mind, and but we now have an area for the articles to go into that's real close to the convention center, and it's moving now. The board will sign you'll have to help me on this, the contract for Hilferty and Company, and to go ahead and proceed with their design. And that design has changed several times too, from what we had wanted originally. So The museum is not Garmonk's fault. Or
No
anyone's.
way. No way. I would just add, John, from our perspective, and if the building was ours, I think we need to get the concrete floor poured. We need to get the roof deck above painted. We need to get drywall hung and finished. And then I think we can walk away and the rest of it can be finished without a significant amount of disruption at a later date. But the idea of opening the facility and then trying to pour concrete in there, bring drywall in, paint, the fumes, I mean, some of those things, we need to push, you need to push the designers to get that information, enough information, they don't have to have the final information, but enough put together to where we can pour the floor, because there's outlets and things in the floor. It's not as simple as just throwing some concrete down. We've got to rough in electrical outlets and data and things like that that have to be located, and circuits have to be designed, and conduit has to be sized, and all this stuff that goes into it. But at a minimum, we need to get those things done before the facility opens to, not disrupt and not tear up, finishes that are in place. So from my perspective, that's the push on the museum. And again, I appreciate your comment that it's not our fault, and I totally agree with you. We're waiting on drawings, and once we have those, we'll go as fast as humanly possible. But I think at a minimum, we've got to get those things done before, I would tell you, February, because I know we're turning it over in March, but for us to turn a project over in March, we have to be pretty much done by the 1st of February, so we can do punch lists, so we can do final cleaning, so we can get all our stuff out of there. And then on March 1st, it's, here's the keys, see you later. So really by February, the building's going to look pretty much done. So,
Well, I'm hoping that by next week, they have their design done and the board can tell them to go ahead with the project, or go ahead, and that's what we're going to do. So
Sure.
we will get that done.
I think we're on track for that.
Yeah, yeah.
Can you
Sure.
go back to the picture of the front of the building?
which one? I had a bunch.
Oh, just where the Larry Bird Museum is and all the glass. The hardscape does look beautiful,
Right
right
there?
there. So what will have to occur to get that concrete poured into the front of the museum?
I mean, we can take out a window, we can pump the concrete in there. We do it all the time. That's not a Herculean effort to get concrete in there. We'll pull a window out, we'll take a door off, we'll put a pump truck on the road, line pump it into the building. It's doable.
Uh-huh.
But we're gonna have to protect, we're gonna lay down
The hardscape.
plywood and plastic and do all those types of things to make it happen, but, we do those things every day.
Is that going to be an increased cost?
As opposed to, if we would have poured it with the rest of the building, absolutely, yeah. I mean, anytime you come back and do something a separate time, there's an increased cost, but I think it's marginal.
And do you have any items, construction-wise, that you're concerned about coming in, or do you have everything inventoried for the completion of the project?
No, I mean, everything's not inventoried. Everything has been called, checked, double-checked, confirmed that this material is scheduled to be delivered by X date. But no, we don't have some warehouse chock full of cabinetry and carpet and ceiling tile and light fixtures. And some of those things are in town, but some of them, we have delivery dates set and we have confirmation from the factory. Now,
Anything you're particularly worried about at this time?
everything. Yeah, I mean, nothing in particular, but yeah, I that's what I do, is lose sleep about, stuff not happening or not showing up. And when it doesn't, which something won't show up, we'll figure it out, solve the problem, and move on. So that's the one thing I can guarantee you will happen. Something won't show up, and we'll have to figure it out. But we will.
Brian, I'm just curious, if we were bidding this project today, percentage-wise, what would be your best guess on how much higher it would be?
So ENR, which is Engineering News Record, which is kind of the go-to journal for construction and engineering, they track construction economics. Usually it's, 2.5, 2.8% inflation per year. This year, just in the last 12 months, has been 15. Now, we bid this project June of 19. Does that sound right? Or 18?
I think it was 18.
I think it was 18.
Might have been 18. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's been a while. I mean, it could be 20, 22, somewhere in there. I mean, it's been a crazy year, so it's hard for me to really, but it's at least 20. Yeah.
And we can also remember there was going to be a second parking garage at 9th and Cherry, or not 9th and Cherry, 7th and Cherry. So that changed.
And keep in mind, that inflation, you've been protected from that, right? Because we bid the job, we gave you a guaranteed maximum price, and we accepted the risk for all those types of things. So there's none of that has been, that burden hasn't been bared by the county or taxpayers.
I just think, I'm sorry. I just think you guys have done a tremendous job, Brian, and your work on this. And as we said a meeting or two ago, between inflation, a pandemic, changing the design, we're going to have 2 garages, then we went to 1. We had a big drainage structure we had to put in, some of these other things. And we also have to keep in mind that this isn't a public works project where we're just building a sewer line and, that's it. This project, to be successful, has to compete in the marketplace. And we've done some things here recently with amenities and so on to make it competitive. And also, the Larry Bird Museum is an integral part of that. We always thought that that would help set up our convention center apart from others. And we've also talked about, maybe in common areas of the museum, have some other sports memorabilia that's not necessarily linked to Larry Bird, but is local. And that's going to help us in the competitive arena as well. So this has been a very challenging project, and my hat goes off to Garmong and Nations Group and everyone that's worked, CSO, everyone that's worked hard to make this a reality. It's been extremely challenging. And when we started it, who could have predicted some of the hurdles that we've had to overcome to get where we are today?
I would agree. I mean, there's been some curveballs, but, anybody can hit a fastball. Curveball hitters are the ones that get in the Hall of Fame, right? So we'll take them.
So I'll just weigh in on that a little bit too. We put this budget together in 2017, and here we are today, still under a little bit or right at budget. That's pretty amazing considering the changes we've made. I'll give you guys kudos on the police station too. You did the exact same thing, kept us on schedule and under budget. And we're in there now, and we'll soon be in this building. And so I don't think we couldn't have had a better partner with everybody that's a part of this, but on the construction side with what you guys have done to keep us on schedule. We've still got some flexibility and room to work to do these things that we need to do, these other amenities, so I appreciate that, really do.
I don't know if my head will fit outside
I know it may not, but
have to grease it up and get me out of here.
it's true.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate it. It's not just me. I mean,
It's a team.
I'm the spokesperson, but we've got a team of people that are doing all the hard work.
get
So,
it.
Any other questions? Yeah.
On change order 98, that's a potential change order is the Graffiti Sealer, the limestone.
Oh, change request.
Correct.
Okay.
Change request for that. Is that for the museum, convention center, and parking garage? Is it all encompassing? Is it only for one?
I'll try and explain it as best I can. It's a little convoluted. So we gave pricing, all in all, it totaled like $13,000. And this was something that was requested, we price. But we broke it up into a number of different chunks, okay? So what we called base bid was really just the 3 signs. And I think maybe Nations Group directed us to do this, but it's the sign out front, that wall you see there. If you look just to the right of that, Terry, there's a pole sticking up. There's a limestone base that gets laid there for a sign, like a pedestal sign that sits there, and then there's one back by the parking garage. $3,000 to do those 3, and then there was a couple other options to kind of continue to add on to that. And all in all, it totaled 13. So it's kind of an a la carte approach to where do you want it.
What percentage of the building would that actually cover? Protect?
The 13,000,
Yeah,
5% maybe.
5% of the building?
10,
And
5, yeah. If you're taking into account the parking garage as well, which, if you're talking about graffiti, hell, they could graffiti whatever they want. So your surface area of building components, yeah, it's minimal.
what kind of maintenance, like how often do you have to reapply for this adhesive or sealant to be applicable?
I don't know. That's a good question. I can get you the product data, which would contain that information. We've got it. But I'm not that familiar with it. This would be the first project we've ever put it on, or that I've put it on.
Do you guys use it on your building across the street?
No. And again, the way it works, as soon as you don't put it on, somebody's going to graffiti it. It's inevitable. But the concern to me would be, if you just put it on a handful of areas, what's the odds that's what's going to get graffitied? You got an entire building that is, subject to it. So.
And that's why I asked.
Yeah.
Especially with some of the other parking garages having graffiti. You can't avoid it, but if this product actually works, I think you want to have the. Yeah, if you could get us the information.
Yeah, be happy to.
So Terry, do you think we potentially need more?
I don't know, I'm just curious. My question was as to what is it, out of this request, what are we actually protecting? Is it the parking garage, is it the building? That's all. But it's something that I think we should discuss.
Yeah, I agree.
I think from my perspective, it was more of just a sign out front and where people are going to actually see the building. If that makes sense, Terry? Because I thought for sure we'd show up one day and it would say Terre Haute sucks or something like that on that wall. While, nobody's there or something happens. That's my biggest concern on the front part.
I know we've got cameras to the back. Are there cameras on that frontage area too?
I believe there are, David. I don't know offhand exactly where every camera's positioned, but we've got a drawing that shows it. I'd be happy to.
Those two together would be effective. If we had a camera and something,
Yeah.
they get it.
I don't know if Todd, if you know offhand where the cameras locations are. Okay, so it sounds like it's pretty well covered.
Good.
Okay.
Anything else? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Moving along, under old business, 5.2 is an update on the convention center management with Tennille of Spectra Venue Management. And she has a guest today.
Good morning. How are you? I wanted to introduce Nate Hall. He is the newest addition to our team. Nate is a sales manager with us. He comes from some of the local hotels. He's worked in hospitality for quite some time, and he has a lot of banquet experience as well, which helps when you're selling business. You understand the back end of our business and what works and what doesn't work, and helps to make a better sales manager. Do you want to?
I'd like to thank Tanel for hiring me. I think that I'm going to make a great asset to this community. I know the value of our community, and I'm just really happy to be a part of this team.
Are you from Terre Haute?
I'm from Blandford, Indiana.
Ah,
Wabash Valley, though.
Yep. Well, good.
Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, perfect. All right, we have a few positions that are open right now. Our Director of Finance position has just been filled. We've hired a lady named Martell Lewis. She comes to us from Anthem, is where she's been previously, but she also has an extensive resort hotel background, so she understands accounting from the hospitality field also, knowing how understanding food costing, food inventory and such. So we're excited to have her. She'll be starting November 1st. We've recently opened up our Director of Sales and Marketing position and our Director of Food and Beverage. So I am accepting resumes for those positions. I haven't started interviews yet. I want to give it a couple weeks to have enough resumes that come in, so we've got some good qualified candidates. Our booking system is up and running, so we have our full CRM working. So anytime anyone calls or we're prospecting, all of those leads and inquiries are going into our database so that we can effectively manage all the business that we have.
CRM, what's a CRM?
It's our customer service management system. It's basically our event booking. So any leads we have, it's a full database where we enter all of the contact information. If we have a conversation with a client, we enter our diary, like what was the phone call about, so we can track everything we're doing. We put all of our proposals in our system. It's how we book our space and create all of our work orders for events. So it's all tied into one system. So it just helps us manage our sales and all of our event processes. We've been talking a lot about grand opening, trying to figure out, which date would work best. We are going to set up 2 committees, and so we'd like to ask that if there's anyone who wants to be on a particular committee, please let us know, and we'll start coming up with some dates and start talking through, what we want to do for the grand opening, doing 2 different types of events. Garmung has graciously offered us additional office space as we grow, so thank you, Brian, for that. I appreciate it. Starting to get worried that we might have to look for more office space, so it'll be nice to be able to stay in the Garmung building until the facility opens and have all of our team together. Telecom was just recently selected a couple days ago. Joink will be the telecom provider. On the marketing front, we've set up our Cvent listing. Cvent is a third-party booking sourcing site. A lot of third-party agents like Helms Briscoe, Conference Direct, just general meeting planners use that to find venues. So we have our listing is now up and running. We're just on a basic listing, so we'll be looking to upgrade that to add pictures, specials, and such. Generally, you receive a lot of leads through that site, and so I'm really excited to have that finally up and going. As far as events, last month we booked the Professional Firefighters of Indiana. They'll be taking place in May of 23rd. And thank you for everyone who showed up for that press conference. That was a really great response to have so many folks attend that. We've actually booked our second event. We have a New Year's Eve wedding coming up for next year. So that was just booked this past week. Actually have a deposit check to give to Jim. So for 2022, we now have 12 tentative events that are in our funnel. And tentative means it's still prospective. They are proposals that are out that we're going back and forth with the client and kind of adjusting things. It hasn't made it to a contract stage yet. So we have 12 in our funnel, and then we have 1 definite event. And then 2023, we have 3 tentative events and 1 definite event. Any questions?
Good.
What are the committees you're going to need people for the grand opening?
Sure. So what we had planned on was doing more of a VIP event and then the public grand opening. And traditionally, what I've kind of been experienced with is having two separate committees. So that way, you've got two different types of events. We don't confuse any of the events. And then you've got two different focuses. So we would look at finding folks for both of those committees.
Neil, if you'll have me, I'll help you with that. I address lists, a lot of those things I have.
Oh, great.
I think
Perfect.
heard from you. So,
And I did just meet with RJL, so they're very excited to be heading a lot of this up. So they'll be a really good partner in helping push everything forward. Great resource. They're very, very excited about getting to this stage.
That's good.
And would we be privy to pricing for events at the convention center? I mean, I feel like the board should be ambassadors, but I don't know, I guess, what we're selling or the price of what we're selling
Sure.
to the public.
So we do have a rate sheet that we typically keep internal because we like to customize events. So there is a rental rate for each of the spaces. We don't put it on our website because what we don't want is someone to go to the website and go, oh, it cost X amount of dollars, I don't want to go there. We would rather have a conversation with the client and say, okay, what does your event entail? If they're doing food and beverage and audiovisual with us, we look at what they're spending in food and beverage, and then we discount down the rental from there because we want to give them the best value. So we certainly have a rate sheet that we can share with you, but when it comes to actually talking to the clients, we like to try to qualify the business and see what is the total value of the event, and then how much can we offer in discounts before we just go, oh, it costs $500 to rent this room, and then someone goes down the road or goes to another city, and they could have done it here and maybe had free rental had we known if they had food and beverage in that. But I can certainly share that with you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, if there's no other questions, we'll thank you, Tennille.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
I'm going to jump around a little bit here under old business. The mayor has another date here that he has to get to, and this next item is his baby, so to speak. An update on the pedestrian wayfinding signage, 4140 Arts and Cultural District. Mayor?
I'll just do a brief intro, and then you can do your thing here, Carrie. This goes back a few years from the Arts and Cultural District. I see we have John and Mary both back here, kind of representing the arts community. And the fact that we want to put wayfinding in place to help us and help our visitors to find their way to a variety of amenities in our downtown area, including the convention center. And so the city of Terre Haute funded the development of this plan, if you will, the technical side of it, to the signage, et cetera, at a cost of about $25,000, and of course we've already covered that. And so I'm here today now to ask for the CIB to fund the phase one, which Carrie's going to share with us here in a minute. There'll be other phases. We'll broaden this and kind of encompass a variety of points in town where we'll point people when they get off the interstate, they'll be able to find their way downtown, et cetera. But I thought it was appropriate and the right way to approach this to engage the CIB into this phase one, and then future phases will be funded with other funding sources. So this is kind of a one-time ask for the CIB to help us get this phase one in place. So Carrie, if you'd like to explain that from the technical side.
Sure.
Tell us who you are and connection and all that.
Okay, yeah, I'm Carrie Romeyer. So I work for, I'm a managing partner at Holder Design here in town, but I'm here representing the 4140 Arts and Cultural District. And I don't know how familiar you are with the district itself, but, sorry, let me get this done. Anyway, in 2018, 2018, we became one of the 10 districts in Indiana, right? Okay. And so at that point, we formed an advisory board, and Jen Perry was kind of the spearhead of that and this project to begin with. And so when the advisory board was formed, we formed a committee to really look at how we are going to direct people throughout our district. And then, of course, with the wonderful addition of the convention center, we wanted to make sure that the visitors are going to be able to find their way to our wonderful museums and breweries and restaurants throughout the district. Also, you know, it reaches all the way up into Indiana State University. And then it actually leads you right down to Turn to the River. So it's just a way to connect pedestrians within our district. Throughout the process, we have hired Arc Design, that the mayor had spoke on, and they helped us develop a comprehensive plan on how to vet the signage. So we did a lot of research, a lot of surveys. We actually had mock-ups made, which some of you may have seen in the chamber offices, and we did a kind of a mock walkthrough and got feedback. So again, there's just been a lot of vetting on how this would work and the placement of the signage and which entities we were going to highlight. So after that, after all that coordination, then we also coordinated with the other groups here in town, the Chamber, Nations Group, the airport signage group, and at the 46 Gateway signage, just to make sure we were all on the same page and we were kind of creating sister signage, and all were, it all fit together. So for phase one, it's only pedestrian signage, as the mayor said, and so these are two types of signs. One has a map and directional signage, and the other ones are totems, which are going to help be a little bit more specific, and we can use them at some of our sculptures and things like that. And then this is kind of our iconic signage. So we wanted to do something fun where you could kind of stop and take a selfie if you're visiting Terre Haute, and you'll see that it lights up. It's blue. It's and I want to mention too that our colorways match the new Terre Haute signage as well. So this was kind of our big signage, and it's going to be these are going to be located at the library. At ISU, kind of by Tilson, which we coordinated with Brian Duncan on that. Then we have the parking garage, right outside of the parking garage that we've coordinated with Alan David for that. So yeah, just bigger moments that while you're walking throughout our district that you can stop and capture a moment. So more broadly, this is where phase one is going. So I've labeled, and I can email this to any of you who want to look at it more in depth. But this is kind of labeled each type of signage and where each type will go. And so we took this and we sent it out for bid. I wrote a request for proposal. We sent it out to all the local signage firms, and then we also sent it to Wagner signage out of Indianapolis, and because they're very familiar with this type of work. So the bids came in April, and we asked for unit prices, and we asked for an installation allowance as well, because it was kind of hard to give a hard bid on each location because they vary so much. So the total for the project for phase one was $82,165, and this includes everything, but there is an exclusion of the concrete base mounting structure through the sidewalk. So I guess maybe we should talk about maybe a little bit of a contingency for that, but for now, I think that $82,000 is going to help us. So timeline, as you guys were talking, there's so many variables right now in form of getting material here and pricing the material and getting subcontractors. So when I talked to Wagner Signs, which I'm sorry, let me step back a little bit. Wagner Signs came back with the lowest apparent bid, and we only actually got one other bid from a local company. They were quite a bit higher, and so at that point, we thought Wagner Signs was our best bet. But and we can share the bids with you, and we can go from there. But so timeline, when I talked to Wagner, it was a little bit wishy-washy because of all those variables that are in play. So I think that once we get an approval and we can say, yes, we can finally move forward with this, then they can get us a better idea of what that timeline's going to be, especially depending on the time of year. So, yeah, I think I covered everything. I'm looking at my moral support group back here, but this is the committee back here, so I think that covered everything. Okay, yeah.
So I'll just add just a little bit. Thank you for
Yeah.
that. That would be the cost. If it comes in less expensive, that's awesome. But if there is any additional cost besides that, the city will bear that, because all these will be in the city right of way, on city sidewalks, and there'll be some electrical hookups, if I
Yes.
remember right. And
Yes.
so we'll provide all the funding for that.
Okay, great.
And your city engineer.
And we'll assign this to one of our city, and we have to take it through the Board of Works, so you'll have
Yes.
to approve it to put the stuff in the right of way, but we'll take care of all that.
And we did meet with Chuck several times about sight prisms and things and making sure that we're not blocking views of traffic.
Gary, your timeline, I mean, was it competitive, or would any of this, do you think, be able to be installed by the time the convention center opens? Or do you think it would be 6 months down the road?
Say March. You're saying March?
Yeah.
Close?
I think it would be tight,
Okay.
depending on the delivery of material. Yeah.
Gary?
Yeah.
I first want to, I appreciate you acknowledging Jen Perry, at the time the arts commissioner, for spearheading
Yes.
the district.
Yes.
It could breathe. That was a huge feat, so I'm happy that you did, mention that, so thank you for that. I do agree, this absolutely supports the tourism. Is there any, the map that you had for locations,
Yes.
now obviously this was your committee that selected these locations, is that subject to change, or has that all been approved?
Yeah, our committee worked really hard to select these locations, and like I said, we kind of did a mock-up too, where we actually had mock-up signs and we set them out and we asked for interaction and feedback. But yeah, everything is, we'd love for you to look at it, and if you have any feedback, we're happy to hear it.
Gary, I've seen a preliminary design quite some time ago.
Yeah.
I'd love to see the final, where they're located, and then also what all is depicted on the signs.
Okay, yeah, and that's gonna take a little bit of work too, because I mean, as you know, the district evolves so quickly. And so, yes, we would have to do a final submittal of the signage, once we move forward.
So can I just add something quick? I apologize, I have to leave for the VA clinic ribbon cutting here. It starts in 10 minutes. So I agree. The reason why I wanted to bring this a couple of months ago, we just weren't quite ready yet because we had to sort out a few things, how to pay for it, the bids and all those things. But we need to move on this only because, and we'll figure out the other stuff later, because I'm afraid the price is going to go up. They're not going to hold those prices because I don't know what.
You know, actually, for the time we bid it in, I would almost ask them to bid it again, because it was in March.
Yeah, so we don't want
So,
to do that. So we just need to see what, unless
Yeah.
they tell us.
That
And I get
prices
that.
have come down, yeah.
Yep. So we'll see. I just worry about, other costs going up. So.
Yeah. And
Concrete and everything
timeline.
else.
Oh, yeah, and the time of year as well.
So that's why I'm just asking the board to act on this today if you can. I apologize, I have to leave. I feel really bad about that, but I do have to go.
Thank you.
I would like to say just a word or two to the board. When food and beverage was put into law, an ordinance here for the county, it was designed to do two things: arts and cultural and the convention center. We can't spend the money for anything else other than those two things. So when I was commissioner, Mary frequented our door quite a bit with
I'm
feet
sure.
turned to the river.
I'm sure. Yeah.
And,
Mary still frequents our door.
yeah, that's,
Yeah.
so I just wanted to remind the board that, we can't pave streets, we can't do anything else other than those two functions, so.
John,
Having said that,
question.
I'm sorry, yes.
Just a housekeeping type question. Who is the entity that actually solicited the bids?
Myself, on behalf of the committee, I did that. Because I am in the design world, I understand the process of writing the RFP, and I have copies of everything for you.
Oh, no, I just, for our council,
I did
is
it-
that okay if one entity solicits bids and then we fund it?
Yes, and we'll address that when we get to resolution, I'm sorry, I forget which one it is. There's a resolution
2021
on that.
Number 10.
But we address that in the resolution that substantially the law was followed in the bid process and that we adopt their bidding, and that we don't think that there's any additional savings to taxpayers by rebidding.
Okay, yeah, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Update on the project budget, item 5.3. Jason Semler with Baker Tilly.
Thank you, John, members of the board. You should have received an updated monthly budget yesterday that we sent out. Really, the schedule hasn't changed too much from last month. Total budget, construction budget is the same. Amount of current contract costs pretty much is the same, identical as last month. Really, the only change from last month is the cost paid to date. As you heard from Brian, there's been a lot of work done the last month. So you paid those bills, and you can see on the second column to the right, almost $24 million costs have been paid compared to the $24 million budget. So about $10.7 million is remaining to be paid if the construction budget comes to fruition as anticipated budget and expenses incur. You can see down at the bottom underneath the current contract costs, the parking garage cameras is $78,175. That's the project that Brian was talking about, the change order that increased the guarantee maximum price, but the intent is to pay for that out of existing cash on hand. And we've shown that you have enough cash flow from your food and beverage coming in to cover that cost. And just as a side note, talking to Jim Bramble, the amount that food and beverage that you collected in October, that's the second highest amount that you've collected in the 2 years and 10 months. So food and beverage is still coming in strong.
Jason, do you know what the furniture and fixtures of 113 is?
Yeah, that's an additional furniture, fixtures, and equipment that Spectra, after looking at the kind of line item of the equipment that was in the budget, they came up with a list of additional items they thought that you need for the facility. So we've included that on here just to show that it's kind of outside the original budget, but I've also kind of included it in your cash flow schedule just to make sure that if you do approve all those items, you can pay for them. So that's kind of why that's below the budget, total budget cost as well, because it's outside the construction budget that was originally approved.
On that, Terry, Tennille and her group have done an excellent job with negotiating prices for the tables and chairs and all the rest of the stuff that's going to go in that place. And she has managed to save $39,000, something like that. Thank you. Yeah. So, again, thank you, Tennille. Anybody have any questions? Jason? Okay, thanks, Jason. an update on equipment purchases, item 5.4, with the Nations Group and Todd Schaefer. Morning again, Todd.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of the board. Thank you for having us this morning. Todd Schaefer with Nations Group. You did steal a little bit of my thunder this morning, John. My update on fixtures, furniture, and equipment is Spectro worked very hard with their national accounts to save $39,000 on the chairs and tables portion of the FF&E package for the building. So we're pleased to report that, and we have that resolution to proceed with that here today to get that procured and get that stuff in motion. An update on the parking garage equipment. I believe their invoice was approved this morning in the Finance Committee to get them started with their down payment to get their material and equipment ordered and purchased and get it on its way here to the site for installation later this fall. They're scheduled for sometime mid to late November for that installation. Everything else on FF&E, including the signage, has been procured and it's in submittals, approvals, and on its way to being procured and ready for delivery to the site on schedule. So that's an update on everything else. It's not on the agenda, but the museum update, just to confirm what we talked about earlier. The revised design was sent a couple weeks ago for the board review. I believe the concept was preliminarily approved, that's what everyone was looking for with the changes that were requested. We did receive less than 48 hours ago a proposal from the Hilferty Group for their design and within the budget of the project. So there's some discussions going back and forth on that to confirm it's a few different things. We'll be able to present that to the board here next week. Probably need a couple weeks to digest that and let us know if we can proceed with them on that. We do want to have them work with CSO, the project architect, to get plans done in phases to keep Garmong moving on that space. Like Brian said, the concrete floor, some of the perimeter drywall space to get ready for the museum, get all that large and dirty, noisy work done well before the museum's turned over. So that's our schedule. I don't see a problem with meeting that schedule if we get things done here in the next couple of weeks. I did want to touch on something I talked about earlier, just to add, compliment what Brian said, the Limestone Sealer, and Mr. Marvel brought this to our attention here a few weeks ago. Because your building does have Indiana limestone on it, that's a porous product. My background previously was on a university campus where graffiti is a little more commonplace. And we had the same product in a lot of our buildings in new construction, so learned about graffiti sealants. This was a great idea, even if you don't have a problem in town, to protect that from graffiti paint because the limestone's porous. It will absorb the paint. When you clean it, you can tell where you cleaned that, so it shows later on. So it's a good idea to use that limestone sealer. We did select a sacrificial sealer so you can clean that off. It takes a layer of it's multi-layer how it works, and you take the top layer of that, so you can do several cleanings on the same area and it still has integrity throughout. And we also provided a cleaner with the for Spectra to have in their facilities office. So if something happens the next morning, they have the cleaner on hand, then go out and clean that off. It's a special cleaner for that product. So we did start out being prudent with the money you have available. Just do the signage in the front. We thought was the most prominent parts of the building. We did quote the other areas of the building in addition to the request for the front. So it hasn't been approved at this time. There's time to do that between now and when the project opens, just depending on how you want to spend your dollars on that. $13,000 is not a bad price for all the limestone you have on the building, but a good start for the initial base bid is what we're going to start with. The parking garage is all precast concrete. Well, it does look like the limestone. It's concrete. That's much easier to clean and not show the scars of cleaning as like the limestone. So the garage is a different type of construction, and it's easier to clean with conventional methods, pressure washing, and this standard graffiti remover that's available in stores. And yes?
All right, so I just wanted to clarify. So we do have a design using
Yeah, concept, yes.
concept,
Yes.
and has that been approved?
I believe, no. I think it's been approved, but we're waiting for the proposal. And you guys are gonna talk as a group to formally approve that? Is that what I understand? Okay.
The design that's in front of you is the one that they've come up with. They've made some changes for us. The shooting area there, right in the center, has been turned around. They're going to put a gate there on the south end to keep the balls inside that area. North of the shooting area has been cleaned out somewhat to give Tennille an area where she can have pre-function events, 50 to 75 people in that area. That was her request. So preliminarily, that's what we're looking at.
So I guess my question, once this is approved, then we'll seek proposals, or will we just use the company that did the design?
They proposed on completing the design with their design phase. This is a concept phase. They have a design phase proposal in to complete that.
They do have a dollar amount for this design?
Yes, they do. And as part of the museum budget, there's an exhibit budget, and it's within that exhibit budget, their design costs. That's part of the exhibit.
Can that be shared?
Yeah, I believe you guys have a copy of that, but I can send it again. The design cost or the exhibit, yeah.
Yeah, we have a copy of the actual design, but I would like to see the cost associated with this design.
Sure, yeah. That was just sent in less than 48 hours ago, so I believe council's going through that, doing a little bit of negotiating, trying to clarify some numbers. Sure, if you can print it out, we'll do it. But yeah, we'll get that here very quickly.
Terry, the finance committee met, or had a Zoom call with Tennille and some others from Pilferty. And we had discussed making the basketball shooting area. They originally had it like a 3-point line. It was way too much space taken up. After talking to Tennille, she thinks this is a major selling point of not only having the museum there, but being able to use the space for fundraisers or whatever you want to do. So we had asked them to resubmit the design, making the shooting area smaller and show people that need to use, or people that have wheelchairs, couples, individuals all staying together so we could see the actual space with people inside it. So this is the new, we just got this.
Okay, so now that we have this, can we get a timeline as far as, you mentioned phases? Obviously, so Garmon can get the electrical, plumbing, all of that in place.
Right, tentative phases, underground electrical, concrete floor by the end of the year. It should be better than that, improved on that schedule. We'll have CSO get the drawings out, and they have to get some pricing on, so I'll say end of the year, not putting pressure on Brian. But and then after that, January, framing and drywall, additional lighting, and painting can be done by, after the floor is down, so that kind of work done February, I would think. So pretty standard materials, and it's pretty simple concept to create a white interior space ready for exhibits and casework and things like that.
Can you tell me when we'll get an estimated open date?
No, I can't, because there's a lot of things that factor into that. The memorabilia inventory is one of those, and getting the inventory to Hilferty to have them incorporated into their concept and get layouts approved by the committee and everything. Their design, they're projecting 12 months on that. That's based on factors such as the inventory, cataloging, and design approval. So
You're saying 12 months from when Garmon's done?
12 months from when their proposal's signed and they can start. But I think one of the first things they need to start is the inventory, which we've heard earlier has been a little slow to get started, but it's starting to pick up pace a little bit. I don't know where that's at. I don't know that anyone here knows where that's at currently.
Todd, I'd like to speak. I actually, part of my office space has the Indiana High School track and field. By no means I'm an expert, but I've kind of learned some things through doing this. One of the things in looking at this, I would think it should follow, your path of entry kind of follow the chronological career of Larry. And so starting with things like Springs Valley or the road to Terre Haute, as opposed to jumping right into college and then backtracking, being, you know, we as residents of Terre Haute kind of know the story. Most of our customers there aren't gonna have any idea. I mean, they're not to that extent. And so that was one of the things, I think just from a traffic flow perspective, you know, maybe altering a couple of these, and I don't know, I say that, I haven't said it prior simply because I had asked a couple others about, you know, what does that area contain? I've really never had an answer. So it's tough to say, you know, maybe size precludes that, the size of the piece in that particular area. But just from a flow standpoint, it seemed to me that following the chronological thing of his career kind of be the way to go back.
I don't have that in front of me. I believe you come in and the entrance door and start to the left. Thank you. Come into the arrival section and then start to, that's area A, then go to area B, which is childhood and high school, college.
Okay.
And it progresses around to, you know, there's coaching and then there's the legacy there at Hall of Famer.
Okay.
Then at the bottom, so I believe it goes in and does it clockwise, which tells the story in a chronological, which is pretty typical for museums, for people and entities like that. So I believe that's what they've done here. They probably have some things in that area. And those areas, I think they have to dial those sizes in, depends on what kind of memorabilia and content they have to work with. So I don't know if they have, you know, not as much for area B, and they have a lot for area C. Those
It would seem
lines
they've
may
done that
change.
for the most part, but I just.
Yeah, it looks, they have, yeah.
For the good of the order.
Okay, no, that's great.
Yeah.
It's good for everyone to hear. Thank you.
And Terry, as well, when this construction starts, we had talked about putting some vinyl stickers on the windows to make sure nobody can see inside and see that we're still not in a mess, but construction's still ongoing. So, you know, coming soon, the Larry Bird Museum, welcome to Terre Haute, stuff like that as well.
I just know that typically with museums, with all the lighting, that we also want to protect the exhibits, the items, from too much sun exposure. So that's also, I don't know if it's good.
There's some building shading with the building design itself, and there'll be some on the interior that Hilford is aware of that they need because of the glass and everything. They'll have shades that probably work with the daylight and sun to control that.
Yeah.
Along with the security cameras and, obviously in protecting.
It's not on the agenda. Are we able to vote on this design to,
I would suggest that hold off voting on the design at this point. It's going to be my first topic of my discussion, but Brian has been in discussions with Hilferty, and they've been productive last day or so, and it projects they'll have the scope of work and exhibits hammered out by next week. So I think being able to see the full scope of things probably the board's interest.
I would like to see the budget prior to voting on it.
the budget is 1.5, and that includes everything. If they have to design a broom hanging in a closet, that comes out of that 1.5, no more, no less. So, I mean, we can't take any money from that to use for anything else. It has to be museum at
Right.
1.5.
Moving a little bit different direction. Spectra has two different fees. One, while we're still under construction, and two, when we hand over the keys. The convention center will be completed earlier than the Larry Bird Museum. When does that fee structure change? Is it when the convention center is handed over or at the completion of the Larry Bird Museum, since that is included in the scope of this project?
I'm not sure I'm the best one to answer that.
Okay, so it's not when the museum is open, okay.
I believe the museum, there needs to be a nonprofit organized for the museum. I think that might be in the works.
Yeah,
And
it
that's
has to be
how
a
the
nonprofit,
operation
and
falls
we
under
had
that.
discussed this morning, seeking out volunteers, whatever, to help facilitate and operate that building.
That's fairly
501c3.
typical for something like that.
Sure.
501c3.
Was there any talk on, like, a gift shop or any type of,
Yep, we talked about that, doing some construction, putting it over there, and then that would help with cross-traffic, send one, folks back and forth between the two. But because of space limitations, we thought that would be, just from my layperson's perspective, the museum, I think, is the most complicated part of this whole project. We have artifacts that are housed in multiple locations that Shelley's been working on there. We had the 501c3 aspect, we had the Hilferty aspect. We want something that's unique, that helps benefit the convention center. So it hasn't been a simple task by any means. But it'll be worth it once they're complete with it.
Steve, I think that board's charge would be partnering with Barnes and Noble beyond the church, where this is a multiple picture. I think that's a big selling point for a number of places, whether it's an elder place, given it's athletic. I think all of them are going to move back, whether we have one location or multiple locations. I think people like to take play in terms of something. So I don't know, I see a lot of possibility, possibilities, but I think that'll be board's choice.
So I guess going back to, protecting the items in the collection here, my concern is most museums have a docent or someone staffing to make sure that items aren't misplaced while there are visitors in the museum. So are you proposing that there would be a separate budget then for cleaning, docents, that type? Or is that part of,
Other than
Spectra be
looking-
hiring someone to handle that?
Yeah, other than looking at the far end of this thing, that means you have to hire an employee, which means 2 employees. And at the time, we just didn't want to get involved with that, with more expense. That's why we come up with the idea of partnering with the Children's Museum, that if they wanted a token or a Larry Bird, whatever, they already have the staff with them. And people coming in from out of town, they're going to visit the Children's Museum anyway. I mean, it's right there. At least that was our thought.
And Todd, correct me if I'm wrong, I think most of the artifacts are pretty secure, bolted to the wall, in a glass case.
Yeah, they will be. That's part of the Hilferty design, is to display them, keep them secure.
And along that line, they are in charge of designing the cases, making sure that they are secure, and having them built. That's part of their 1.5 all-in budget.
cameras, security,
Pardon me?
cameras, security, different aspects of keeping those items safe?
Wrestled with is just generally speaking, in regard to the displays, do we want static displays or more active? With a lot of electronics, then you get into maintenance and things break and so on. Personally, I lean more towards static displays, so we stay away from a lot of those things, but, you know, those are, we'll lean on Hilferty, you know, they'll guide us in that regard as well.
Steve, from what I've seen, the biggest interactive, I think back to the Boston Connection, kids shoot hoops and things, but parents would look down at the historic perspective, but I think kind of the play area, and I don't think that's a high maintenance item, so I think that's a great.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Item 5.6, an update on the alcohol beverage permit and other legal matters.
I will start with other legal matters.
All right.
I just got an update from Mr. Bosma. He said that he doesn't think there'd be any issue with amending the agenda under new business to approve the design of, that's what we'd like to do today, to take those in two parts. So we'll still work on finishing the scope with Hilferty, but if the board wants to approve the design, we can amend the agenda to do that under new business. So that, we've discussed most of Hilferty with Todd just there in Nations Group. One thing that we have learned is that Hilferty is not responsible for the licensing of Larry Bird's likeness. So we've got items from Mr. Gibson that we'll be using in the museum, which we'll work on an agreement with Mr. Gibson's attorney for the use of those. But then there's also using Larry Bird's likeness. So the law firm will work on the license agreement to use Mr. Bird's likeness. So it's one of the top issues we're dealing with now. We've dealt with the other. Then alcohol beverage permit. I passed out a timeline to all of the board, just kind of going over the process here. I've reached out to the alcohol, the ATC, and spoke with one of the processors. You can see here from the timeline, first thing we need to do is actually fill out the application. The permit will be held in the CIB's name with Spectra as the manager of the entity, of the space. And so I'll be sending out information. The board has to actually, members, apply as well, though it's held in the CIP's name. So I'll be sending out that information to you all individually. If you have questions, feel free to ask me questions you have. And we'll be working with Spectra on coordinating the floor plan and getting Spectra's information for the manager's question. So as you can see from the workflow here, it's about 10 to 12 weeks to finalization. After we do the application, it goes downtown to the alcohol inspection. It's forwarded on to excise, police, and they do a local hearing out here. Next local hearing is mid-November. So we're shooting to get our application in to file that local board hearing. Part of the process will acquire a floor plan where alcohol will be served. So again, we'll be working with Spectra and Carmon with the floor plan submitted. Excise will have to do a final walkthrough once the building's complete before there's final approval. Go ahead.
Let me interrupt you. Floor plan. What about outside? Are we allowed to do that? I mean, I envision closing the street like they do between 6th or 5th and 7th Street for street fairs and whatever. Will this permit allow us to do that?
So we'll be able to go partially outside of the building on the property, and again, we'll have to work with excise to make sure that the floor plan's acceptable. If it's actually into the right-of-way, some of the exterior areas that aren't part of the floor plan apply for a temporary permit. Those are issued one-off, and it's a pretty regular process.
Doug, Tennille had a great idea of utilizing the top floor of the parking garage, since that is the property of convention center, would that be okay? Or would that be a supplemental permit in some way?
I imagine that they would want that to be the temporary permit, but I could certainly work with, again, coordinate with Spectra, make sure that we're covering all the bases, and the excise police on what a allowable floor plan would be. Good news is, you guys may have heard that sometimes alcohol permits go for exorbitant amounts of money. That's because some of them are under quota. This particular type of permit is not under quota. That means that you get one whenever it's readily available. It's the figure $1,000. So
What are the particulars of our permit?
So it's my understanding, and I'll confirm with Tennille, but it would be a three-way permit, which would allow for beer, wine, liquor.
Mm-hmm.
Is it, the cost is just $1,000?
Yeah, for those that are on quota, there's limited supply, and those can go for hundreds of thousands of dollars. This is
Now, why is it so cheap?
that's just the state's cost of licensing.
Okay.
So that's, when you hear about those alcohol permits going for hundreds of thousands of dollars, that's when you pay a private party to get their license that they used to use. So
Okay.
you pay that to them, and then in subsequent years, on your renewals, you only pay $1,000 to the state. So it's just that secondary market that causes those prices to be high. Because we get this directly from the state, because there is a quota, no limit on how many they can out for convention centers. We get one direct from the state.
Oh,
It's just the state's.
Convention center. Okay. Got it.
Any other questions?
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Questions?
Right there. Yes. Got it.
Thank you, sir. All right, new business. We're going long here today. 6.1, Resolution 2021-10, approving the response to invitation to bid for the pedestrian wayfinding signage.
We went over this briefly in old business, just to touch on some of the high points. Statute does allow food and beverage funds to pay for wayfinding. Should have the corrected citation in the last recital there, Title 6, 9, 48, 10, specifically allows for wayfinding improvements. We've purposefully written this resolution to be broad. It does three things. One, it acknowledges that 4140 did the solicitation largely in compliance with the procurement laws applicable to the CIB. And then it allows the president or vice president of the board and legal counsel to enter into an agreement for procurement of services. And thirdly, it allows the auditor to pay up to $150,000 for the wayfinding. The reason we wrote it that way, as the mayor said, the city engineer will be on this project. It's in coordination with the city. So there's potential that city that actually enters into agreement with selected vendor, and that CIB may just, we potentially wrote it loose to allow for the ability for CIB to enter an agreement if that's the route that we eventually go, or the city to enter that agreement. It's, again, allowable expense of food and beverage to pay for that wayfinding. So that's three things it touches on. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2021-10, with the mayor to see if we can cost
I'll second.
Was that you, Terry?
Yes.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve with the caveat, as described by Mr. Patterson, the resolution to approve special purchase of wayfinding signage. Karen, could you call the roll?
Ms. Conley?
Aye.
Mr. Patterson? Mr. Schweitzer?
Aye.
Ms. Crapo?
Aye.
Mr. Witt? Mr. Marvel?
Aye. The motion has been made and it's approved. All right, Resolution 2021-11. This would be to mirror what the county commissioners did yesterday and expressing support for the Vigo County casino application. Doug?
Mr. President. So this resolution expresses support for the casino application. Under state statute, there are required elements that the Gaming Commission can consider. One of those is a resolution of support by the legislative body of either the county or the city. So that's a required element that the Gaming Commission must consider. The section at the very end of that says any other items that they believe are important to consider. So this is a resolution of support, in particular for Hard Rock Cafe, but then also when reviewing the applications for the gaming permit, it was noted that one of the applicants had seating for up to 500 people. Conversations with Spectra thought that that was a direct conflict with Convention Center, and that limiting that space to 250 people would be in the best interest of the Convention Center and of the region as a whole. We want to work hand in hand with the casino, hopefully have synchronicity with them, not have conflicts of fight for business. So this resolution supports having no more than 250 person capacity casino and the Hard Rock Cafe location.
No, I mean, if you don't mind, Doug and John, can I read section 3 to its entirety? Or Doug, you can, whatever. I think that's the most important part of this resolution.
Sure, I'll read it.
Okay.
The board requests that the commission, in its review of applications, disallow or revise any application which provides for a ballroom capacity in excess of 250 persons, as any such facility will have an undue competitive impact on the operation of the convention center and the significant public funds invested therein.
Yeah, I think the most important part is that this is public funds building this convention center. And it is a major issue, as Tennille has said, kind of the sweet spot of the convention center is around 500 people. So to have a group come in wherever they locate to pull from the convention center is an issue. And it would hurt the convention center, I think. So by doing this, show support for Hard Rock and it limits their capabilities of operation.
Chris, you've been involved in the conversations with the 4 groups. Is it correct to say that your committee, for lack of a better term, told this entity that having something in competition with the convention center would not be favorably if they submitted it anyway?
Yeah, we had told all the applicants, we had made them aware of things that are going on in the community, such as the concert venue on 63 down south, that private investment is working there, so we really didn't want a big amphitheater style whatever inside the casino. And then second, we had made them all aware, we had met in downtown Terre Haute, and we said, a block away, we have a $35 million whatever project, convention center project, that we don't want direct competition. All the casinos had referenced a busing system, go to the casino and play, come to the convention center for your convention or your meeting, get bused back out to the casino. And they were all on board with this, which is surprising to see. One of the applicants did put a 500-person ballroom style space. We didn't think any of them would do that. So yeah, each applicant brought a unique perspective to things they would do for Vigo County and the city of Terre Haute, but we specifically said, no big stage where you would hold 500 or 600 people, to be in competition with Tim in the mill down there, and then no convention space to be in direct competition with what Tennille and Spectra, city of Terre Haute and Vigo County are trying to do with the convention center.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2021-11.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Karen, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Conley?
Aye.
Ms. Crapo?
Aye.
Mr. Patterson? Mr. Marvel?
Aye.
Mr. Schweitzer?
Aye.
Mr. Witt?
The motion passes. Thank you.
Mr. President,
6.3,
that would be-
resolution,
Sorry.
nope, sorry.
That will be forwarded on to the commission. Just so the board knows, the gaming commission still has not finalized the process for the public meeting and the approval. We're monitoring daily to ensure that we keep you apprised of any other ability to weigh in that process.
Hey, Doug, real quick, John, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Can you speak on that public meeting, because they're required to have a public meeting, correct?
We'll have a public, whether or not that has a public hearing element to it, has not been published yet. And so again, I've got automatic updates set up on their website. So anytime there's an update to those procedures, I'll get that
Well,
immediately.
because as a county and as a city, we would like to know about that too, because it gives, we'll give the applicants an opportunity to speak, and it will give, hopefully, an opportunity for the county to speak as well, or residents within. So if you do, I would appreciate it.
I've reached out to the general counsel already, and I can follow up with him when I get back to the office today, just to reiterate that, continue to monitor, so we'll keep you apprised of that.
Okay. Item 6.3, Resolution 2021-12, which is the approval of special purchase of furniture with Todd. Oop. Is that not correct?
I can handle it if
Yeah.
Todd's already halfway up. We'll save him a walk.
He's old.
Todd mentioned this in his update. This is the resolution where Spectra has found additional savings for the purchase of tables and chairs. And I'm missing something. Why not? It's just tables and chairs. Tables and chairs. So the board will recall you approved an RFP for the furniture. The RFP and the contract that resulted from it allowed for the scope of deliverables to be increased anytime. And so what happened here is Spectra found additional savings that were especially unique to the situation. And under Indiana law, if there's additional special savings to a government entity, special purchase. So decreasing the amount on the original contract as allowed in the RFP and in the contract, and awarding the additional $39,016.99 for tables and chairs to the new vendor. I'm sorry, that's the savings amount. So the decreased amount to the new vendor for a savings of $39,000.
Like Doug says, we talked about this earlier, and it just saves $39,000, so is there a motion?
A motion to approve item 6.3, approval of special purchase of furniture.
Is there a second? Motion is made by Ms. Crapo and seconded by Dave Patterson. Karen, would you call the roll?
Ms. Conley?
Aye.
Ms. Crapo?
Aye.
Mr. Patterson? Mr. Marvel?
Aye.
Mr. Schweitzer?
Aye.
Mr. Witt?
The motion passes. Thanks again, Tenille. Item 6.4, the last item under new business, Resolution 2021-13. It's approving the expenditure of food and beverage tax for convention center construction items. Doug?
Thank you, Mr. President. This again is one that Nations Group on and Garmon. This is the expenditure for the anti-graffiti coating for the $13,428, which was discussed in old business, and then a sum for exterior lighting on the project as well, an amount not to exceed $25,000. All of those are allowable cost of food and beverage, and this authorizes payment.
Now, are we approving each item individually, or are they a package?
As written, the anti-graffiti is a not to exceed of $13,428, and the lighting is a not to exceed $25,000. So the resolution itself is for the total amount of $38,428. However, each part of that is capped at
So approving the resolution approves both.
correct. Less than that.
I believe earlier we talked about actually looking into how much this was going to cover as far as the anti-graffiti. So I would still like that information prior to.
How much limestone will be,
Yes, I just would kind of like to know if, I hate to put a cap on something if we talked about discussing other areas of that.
Hey, Brian, can I have you for a second? Can you discuss how much of the convention center, the actual structure, is limestone compared to the ephes or whatever you called it? I mean, I can't remember exactly. The lower area, I believe, is limestone. The rest is.
Yeah, so the limestone is predominantly along Wabash Avenue. And it's, at the main entrance, we've seen the sign. There's pillars on each side of the Larry Bird Museum that are limestone. And then as you go towards the west or towards Hilton Garden Inn, there's columns. I could probably show it. In between the windows as you go down, that's all limestone. As you turn and go down between the convention center and the Copper Bar, you're walking north towards the parking garage. That's a ground face block material. Kind of looks like limestone, but it's an 8-inch by 16-inch block. It's not limestone. It's a CMU masonry product. That product's used in that area all along the back or north side of the building. And then as you come in the alleyway between the Hilton Garden Inn, it's down low with ephes above it. So the limestone is really just along Wabash Avenue.
So do you think this, I hate putting you on the spot like this, but do you think this $13,000 would at least do the limestone protection for the front of the building?
Yes,
And
it
the rear?
does.
In the rear?
It does. The 13,000, I think, does all the limestone. Yeah.
Which is what we're worried about. The other concrete block, I don't know if it's as advanced of a sealer, if that makes sense. And then also, Brian, does the weather affect this? If we were to table this now, would the weather affect putting the sealer on, or should we wait till spring? Or
No, I think, typically a lot of those products, they want you to be 32, 40 degrees and rising somewhere in that range, which we can still get this year. And Terry and Emily, I emailed you guys the product data while I was sitting there for that material.
So this is not included in the agency of Garmont?
Correct.
Can you tell me, are there other expenses that are outside of the budget? Other than these two items?
Let me answer that real quick. Chris and I asked about the graffiti thing.
I have no problem with that.
And then we happened to be driving by the north side of the convention center in the evening, and it was dark. It was dark. And we asked Brian, are there any lights in that area? And the only thing that would be, any kind of light would be coming from the glass windows there in the convention center itself.
It would be light that spills from the convention center or the parking garage. There's no dedicated lighting.
This is,
I'm
this
sorry?
is the back
Correct.
of the convention center. And the area, if you can look right here on the side, those are the windows that he was talking about that light would spill from. Our thought was just to put 2, maybe 3 lights on the back of the building there and light up that area. Most people going in the convention center are going to be going this way. If we have something at night, other than that light coming from the convention center, it's dark. And now's the time to put them on. Why they weren't thought of by CSO, who knows? But that was the reason for the lighting. And the same with cameras in the garage. I didn't think about that. But me being an old copper, who cares if they come and go and don't pay their bill, other than Spectra? I'm worried about somebody getting their car broken into up there on the 2nd or 3rd floor and,
Or fender bender,
or fender bender.
or somebody get robbed. So, just
Well,
for insurance purposes, that's why we went for the, what's the, camera security.
Given a positive budget balance right now, is there another way to fund it until we see if Garmong comes back with any contingency money at the end of the project? And, I mean, furthermore, I imagine there's going to be other expenses like these come down the pike, but paying for them all at once at the end of the project when we actually need a disbursement of cash flow versus opening up a new way to pay for things?
Question, is this coming out of the cash? These funds, obviously, is coming out of the food and beverage tax cash, but what we have currently in our cash.
Not what we've budgeted.
Right. No. These are all add-on items. The owner's contingency has been gone for quite some time. That's where the money would have come from.
Okay.
The food and beverage, the only thing, again, that could be used for is the convention center or arts and culture. I guess I just don't understand why not use that money.
No, I think we have money to use now, is my point, and there's possible monies coming back to us at the end of the project.
But we have $200,000 plus that comes in every with food and beverage, every month.
Oh, I know, I'm just saying, I don't know why we have to spend it just yet if we don't need it.
Well, we do need it.
Brian, can you explain what we would use a construction contingency for, why we wouldn't, or something like this?
Sure. Our contract, our guaranteed maximum price, a component of that is construction contingency, which really belongs to us until the project's completed, and then the way it's arranged is any money not spent reverts back to the CIB, to the owner. And currently, we've got a balance of, I think, $217,000 in contingency. Then there's roughly another $50,000 of owner allowances that total right around $270,000, I believe. To your point, Chris, it can be used for, I think there's about 5 or 6 specific items it allows for that to be spent on.
Your contingency?
My contingency. Weather-related impacts, material or labor-related impacts, right? I give it an example. If all the carpet for the job is in a shipping container off the shore of Long Beach, and it's gonna sit there for the next 6 months. I'm gonna have to figure out a way to get carpet in that building by March 1st, right? And that's gonna cost me extra money to expedite the carpet, ship it, whatever, to get it here on time. That would be an allowable use of contingency. Overtime, accelerate or meet the schedule is an allowable item. So there's a handful of things like that. You know, adding security cameras in the garage is not one of them, right? That's an added scope item. So, you know, and I'm pretty protective of our contingency because that's really what mitigates our risk. But, you know, my goal is to deliver every bit of that at the end of the job so you can use it. So I think this is the right conversation to be having. But, you know, I think at times people are like, well, just let us use it, you know, to buy these things we want. And, you know, that's just a bad business decision on our part. But to Emily's comment, I don't think it's out of the question to kind of, for the CIB to bear the risk that, hey, we think there's going to be money coming back at the end of the job, and we're willing to take that risk and pay for these things with the anticipation that there's going to be contingency left over. And if there's not, which there might not be, you would pay for it by other means, right? Food and beverage proceeds. So it's kind of the same thing. This is just kind of a stopgap if for whatever reason, you know, you want to increase the scope of the project without using cash on hand. Does that make sense? But in that scenario, you're taking the risk, I'm not, which is the way it should be.
John, do we have a ballpark of how much is in food and beverage total?
Jason could probably tell.
Jason?
Well, and this would be both of your funds, your food and beverage, plus the money that you collect from the various entities, like the county and the Vision Bureau and the city. But as of, let's see, at the end of September, we had $12.8 million in there. Now, again, that's also to help pay for construction, because when we set the budget for the convention center, we knew that part of the construction we paid from bond proceeds and part from food and beverage. So, but there's $12.8 million from both food and beverage and the contributions that you receive from the various entities. And that's enough to cover the budget, plus then, as you can see from the cash flow, have amount remaining each month.
Well, one thing we could do is go ahead and pay this out of food and beverage, and then if we have any contingency money left, we can reimburse food and beverage.
That's what I was gonna say. I mean, it's almost like we're just, I don't know how to say it correctly, but the additional expenses we're taking on now, if Brian is correct in saying that he is firm on his contingency staying strong, it's almost like just a wash of money.
Well, I guess my issue is that we've said we were within budget on this project, and paying these expenses directly out of food and beverage goes beyond the scope of our current budget. So I guess I'm willing to take the risk that we do get that contingency back to fund these items and that we stay within that budget. To me, if we spend the money today out of food and beverage, we have not stayed within our budget as we have touted all along with this project. And I think that's important. Public perception, and we're moving along ahead of schedule and staying within budget, and it's just all been such a positive thing, and I think that keeps us in our lane.
We knew all along that this convention center was not going to cost us what amount of money that we borrowed for the bond payments. We knew it was going to cost several $1 million more. So the budget that I'm talking about is that original money that was put in there to help build the convention center. We knew that food and beverage was going to be available, and again, that it could only be used to build, to construct the convention center and cultural and arts. So when I say that we're on budget, we haven't went out and borrowed any more money. We've got bonds for 26 or whatever it was. We're bonded for that. That's the budget. All the rest, we knew that we were going to have to come up with, and it was food and beverage.
At this time, I would move to table this resolution 2021-13 pending further discussion.
There's a motion on the floor.
And I would just like to see, there's just these two items at this time. If we have a comfort level and maybe opening up a contingency for items outside the budget. I guess Garmong has a contingency budget that they're allowing. My fear is we have 10 more of these. Okay, so I would just like for us to determine what is that contingency outside the budget come, so that there isn't, so we know going in, okay, what's our limit? Where do we kind of draw the line in the sand to know that, as I guess Emily put it, staying in our lane? I don't think Emily has any issues with lighting or with, and I don't have any issues with lighting, and I don't have any issues with, obviously, with the sealant that they're putting on. But I would just like for us to actually have a contingency outside of construction for this project.
Terry, I would know how, these came up just as a need, whether it was driving by or whatever. I kind of think those are going to be on an individualized basis. I don't know how else that would.
So I guess as long as we're looking at resolutions for specific items, I have no problem with, but I don't want to open up a resolution that allows for approval of future items. Is that?
I agree with
Is
that.
that, so
Yeah.
would you be okay with
Individually and then decide whether we want some money.
any
for
items
that
outside
particular
of,
item. Yeah.
any items outside of the project that then are brought to the board individually?
Absolutely.
And not, I guess, from,
Yeah, I just feel like there needs to be further discussion on this. It's a bit, not disorganized, but we need to iron some things out before approving.
Emily, what things do you want to iron out so I can take notes?
Well, I would like to see, I guess,
Mr. President, I'm sorry, point of order. There's a motion on the floor that hasn't been seconded yet. I think that the motion needs to be ruled on before discussion continues.
Is there a second on Emily's motion?
I'm going to second Emily's motion in the fact that I think the resolution needs to be individual per item that we're.
That wasn't her motion, Terry. Her motion was to table it for further discussion. We have to rule on that motion, is that right?
Correct.
Any items?
I would like to withdraw that motion and,
Just withdraw your motion.
So is that sufficient for you, Doug?
Yeah,
Withdraw
the motion's been withdrawn.
Pardon me?
The motion's been withdrawn.
Okay. Now,
So can we chat a little bit again?
You're still under discussion of approving the resolution was the last motion made. That's the discussion that is currently happening.
Can
Pending
we
motion.
amend the resolution? I guess my question is, legally, can we amend the resolution to approve these two items with all future items outside of the project budget to be reviewed individually?
can move that.
Okay.
I'd second that.
What was that motion again?
The motion is to amend Resolution 2021-13 to approve current items and then
Future items to be reviewed on an individual basis.
Yeah, I don't feel like we can wait on this graffiti thing. I'm worried about tonight. Somebody's gonna read our story and go out and do something.
Yeah, once Howard writes it down, there you go. Hello, Neon.
So Tara, are you talking about a resolution that if there's something that comes up, you just want it to be an individual resolution per item?
I would like, yes, a resolution per item is just what I would like to see, because there's been other change orders that have been grouped together, and so honestly, for budgeting purposes, I think it does help to have those items individualized, especially for Baker Tilly and the fact that you can see each item. It'll help for accounting, and I think honestly, and then it'll help us track where we stand. So I would like to see the resolutions.
Can we rule on this, which is approving the 2 items, and then make a new motion for all future requests to come before the board?
either way is acceptable.
I agree. It just,
We go back to now 2021-13,
As unamended, correct.
unamended.
Well, won't she have to withdraw that motion?
You'll have to withdraw it.
Did I miss it?
I have to withdraw I will withdraw my motion for amending resolution number 2021-13.
There's a motion on the floor.
No, there's not a motion on the floor yet.
I thought she was making one.
She just withdrew it. She withdrew her motion.
Okay.
So I will move to approve resolution number 2021-13.
Motion's been made and seconded. Karen, call the roll, please.
Ms. Conley?
Aye.
Ms. Crapo?
No.
Mr. Patterson? Mr. Marvel? Mr. Marvel?
Aye.
Mr. Schweitzer?
Aye.
Mr. Witt?
Aye.
Okay. That motion passes.
I will make a motion, Doug, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong here, that if we have these items come before the board, we will make it privy to all members of the board moving forward before it comes up in a board meeting.
And we'll assess it.
Right. And then we'll discuss it.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Karen.
Ms.
That
Conley?
motion has been made and seconded.
Sorry.
Karen?
Sorry. Ms. Conley?
Aye.
Ms. Crapo?
Aye.
Mr. Patterson?
Aye.
Mr. Marvel?
Aye.
Mr. Schweitzer?
Aye.
Mr. Witt?
Aye.
That motion passes. I do want to caution the board members on emails and things like that we can't discuss with a quorum on the internet. That would have to be an individual thing. But if we get past 3, like 4, then we violated the open door law.
That is correct, Mr. President. Just brief overview. The open door law defines meetings as gathering of a majority of the governing body, public agency for purposes of taking official action. Official action is kind of deceptive. It sounds like it's something more than what it is. It defines official action as receiving information, deliberate, make recommendations, or establish policy. Then, of course, make decisions or take final action. Those are what we don't typically think of. So if there's a process of conversation or taking in information, that can constitute public meeting. The law is kind of unclear on emails, and I don't think anything that the board has done to my knowledge, has crossed over into a public meeting, but the president's recommendation, just to be cautious of that, certainly should be taken.
So a gathering does not include, if I were to email the board, that's a gathering.
You would have to do a Terry kind of individualized. You can't send a group email as a group. If you want to send something to me, something to John, something to Dave, it has to be email to email.
For discussion purposes, not to vote or recommend any votes.
Forever.
or
It's
any
same with our
discussion.
county council, city council, things like that. If we want to email the council,
I just wanted
we
to
have to do
clarify
it
that it
person by
was
person.
an email was, as you quoted it, yeah.
An email can be a gathering. Public Access Council puts out a handbook regularly, and they're not very clear. The language they put in there is that an email exchange can be considered a meeting. It's largely dependent upon the nature and intent of communicating. And so, I can't tell you off the top of the head what it would be, meeting or not, but it's that intent, whether or not we're trying to make recommendations, establish policy, and even say receive information. But I think one general email distributing information is different than engaging in a conversation back and forth after that. So it's a case-by-case basis. And I don't think anything that I'm aware of has crossed that line, but the President's point, just to be aware that emails can be considered meetings.
Any
I can
further
provide the link
discussion?
to that handbook as well.
I'm sorry.
I can provide the link to that handbook as well if you're interested in further reading.
It might be helpful, thank you.
All right, under other business, any questions or comments from the board members? Hearing none. Our next regular board meeting is November the 20th, 2021. We're adjourned.
We'll post notice. Yeah, they recognize that. They'll fix it in the notice.
Hey, Chris, did you want to talk?
Yeah,
Somebody said stop and run.
Hey,
last week, we went to the jail last week. I don't want to say it.
Yeah.
So one question is, eventually, what would that entail? Would that be a whole to at least get the walls up, seal it's approved in, or but
Is there like basically
just thinking about it. If it does get into life,
I mean, it's sort of what you did for mining. I know that Dave said a few months, that seems reasonable, but I wanted to talk to you guys, and I know maybe 2 months now is different than what. But it's something we need to. Transfer money in.
That's why we're all talking about it.
Yes, sir. So talk about contingency, 'cause like, I do that monthly cash flow, and I see change for, I know that's how my, in the red area, that's the latest million, $1.5 million. So then I know, okay, we could afford it. Sure. But I understand having more concrete than just being.
I agree with you a lot. So that's okay.
Well,
yeah, I'll talk
one
to
person to
you.
one.
Yeah.
No, but, shorter, yes. Instead of calling them.
Yeah, you might as well.